What do you guys want to know? Is there anything? There we go. What's up?
Between your two suits, the red and the gold, which one was more comfortable, or is there no difference?
Well, I mean, the spandex wasn't different with either one. The gold was the plastic. It was super light. It was kind of but it was rigid. So I had to be a little. It's funny because when I came back as a Gold Ranger, I was even more jacked than I was as the Red Ranger. So anytime I would flex super hard, the armbands would pop, which was funny. And I used to make wardrobe crazy and do it on purpose, because we'd have to hit all these poses and stuff, and I'd be like, ugh, and I'd give it a hard flex, and then just hear the shh, and wardrobe's like, ah. And then the director's like, wardrobe! I'm like, sorry guys, I don't know what happened. I mean, fighting with all the rigid pieces was kind of, something to deal with, but hey, welcome to the party. I was like, there's, 12 people.
Yeah, you started without me. This is pretty cool, though.
Yeah, pretty easy going.
To continue off of that, was the
yeah, Sunday at 4:30, I was like, I feel like I should be sitting down there and we should have fajitas or something. Which would not upset me. Although, okay, so I grew up my whole life eating, meat, protein, all that stuff, like all those guys, have a hamburger, bring me a steak, like that's what we do, right? I want the chicken, bring me the hot wings. And then I just watched a video, Nina Bergman, who's here, told me about a video called The Game Changers. Man, I've been wrong about a lot of things in life, but there are not many that I have been wrong my whole life about. And the way I eat, even when I was shredded, had my 8-pack, which was like 35 years, I was eating all the meat I could eat, and I just cut out the carbs. And I trained like a superhero, Watch this video, it's on Netflix, it's called Game Changers. You got medical problems, you're dealing with overweight, you have atypical neurological presentations, autism, you're in the spectrum, things along these lines. Take a look at Game Changers. And there's another one called What the Health. Man, I just dedicated, decided, I go home tomorrow, I'm gonna do a 30-day challenge on a vegan diet and see if I can't not want to kill somebody if they walk by with a steak, because I might have some homicidal tendencies. That could happen. Yeah, just saying. Or some chicken wings. Look out. So anyway, to divvy off of that, the suits were kind of cool, and 19, 20, 21, I could eat whatever I want, but I was working out so much that I was eating almost 6,000 calories a day, and I was still shredded. I couldn't keep weight on to save my life. Which was cool.
And then age happens.
No, it's not. It's in the armpits and shit. And there is a green one. You guys don't love her? No, they're not even back there. All right. They already left for the day. So what else is up?
Off of that, the Gold Ranger, all the extra stuff on top of the spandex compared to the Dragon Shield on top of the Red Ranger one, which one of those was harder to work with? I know it was years later, so I didn't know if they improved.
Well, the shields were about the same. The Gold Ranger shield was a little bigger than the Dragon Shield, but not significant. Really, the only time it messed me up is when I had huge arm movements where the arms had to come up over the top, because the shields were out past my shoulders. So that took a little adaptation, but it wasn't. We did that all day long, every day, so it was pretty easy towards the end. What does Harry Potter have to say?
Well, I read one time that when they first did Power Rangers, a lot of the footage with the Rangers in their suits was from the Japanese shows, and they pretty much dubbed over a lot of it.
Yep.
So when did you guys actually start doing your own acting in the suits, in the fight scenes, or did that ever transition? Or?
Probably somewhere around episode 40 is where they ran out. And I mean, we were in the suits from episode 1, but you could always tell when I was in the suit because I was not built like a little Japanese man. I was thick. So, needless to say, but I also couldn't fly like those guys. I mean, they defied gravity. It was watching those guys. They were some of the greatest stunt guys I've ever worked with. But because they were so slight, I mean, y'all think Michael Jordan had hang time in the air? You should have seen these guys. They get up there and you're like 1, 2, 3, 999, 1,000. Okay, it came down. I mean, like, incredible. So, you know, those guys were pretty insane, but they came in, that was Alpha Stunts. And these guys half of them were the original, like the Red Ranger. The guy in the Red Ranger suit today who does stunts has been the same guy in that suit for almost 50 years, since Japan. And that boy still flies high. Like, he is a legend. So he's done a lot of amazing stunts. Now, after episode 40, we did some stunts. The problem was we ran 3 camera units at the same time, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie units. So we couldn't always be, we obviously had to be where they needed to see our faces first. Because, you know, high school, the juice bar, the gym, the martial arts competitions, and the park, you know, the, ooh, there's a monster scenes, you know, all that we had to be there for. So we would do that. Bravo unit would go and pick up B-roll, like here's a beautiful scene of the park before we all morph into the park and things blow up. Or they would reshoot things that didn't require the primary actors at the time. And then Charlie unit was all the costumed fight footage. So when we could, we would all, especially myself and Walter or Zach, we would go hauling butt over to Charlie unit. We're like, let's fight, let's go. You know, what do you mean I'm only fighting 8 guys? Come on. And we'd have a great time with it. But we just didn't have, we shot so fast, so many episodes, we didn't get a lot of time to go over there and do that. But when we did, it started around episode 40.
Have you got to do much in Japan, and has Power Rangers, obviously because they have the Super Sentai original, but Power Rangers is the thing over there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it started in the 70s over there, and Yuta, who is the OG Red Ranger, I got to meet him, I guess, in 2016, 2 years after I came home from the war, and he was a consummate gentleman, really nice guy, very humble, and his English was much better than my Japanese, you know. I was stuck with like, domo arigato, Mr. Roboto, you know, like that was my Japanese. And I knew how to count, and that was about it. And so we got to talking, and we were both very busy at Power Morphicon. And then we went out and had beers afterwards. And some of the Alpha Stunt team came out with us. I got to meet the original Yellow Ranger, and I mean like the OG Japanese original Yellow, and some of those guys. And he's a dude, by the way, which y'all saw, but nobody understood at that age. And we got to talking, and I told him, I said, listen, you know, in 40 countries outside of Japan, in 90 languages, everybody calls me the original Red Ranger. And for them, I am, but I know that I'm not. And I have to give credit to you, but in order for me to tell the world what I really am, I need to know from you. And I said, so what number Red Ranger am I really? Now, before I tell you what he said, and the translator's, you know, whispering in his ear, and the whole stunt team's there, and everybody's just kind of chuckling and laughing and whispering back and forth. Now, I have to tell you, when you watch a race, NASCAR, running race, marathon, whatever's racing, everybody wants to see number 1. Everybody might stick around, like if you're watching number 1, you're probably gonna see number 2 and 3, but by then you're off celebrating and you forgot everything else that happened, right? Like after number 2 or 3, you're already not paying attention. So he talks with his translator and talks with the other guys, and he leans back. He goes, number 26. So now let's go back to that NASCAR race. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Now you're into the Doritos, you're into the nachos, you're at the bar ordering another round. You're sitting down, you're hitting on your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever it is you're doing. You're doing everything in the world. By the time 26 passes by, you're in bed snoring. You know, it's over. You're like, 20 who? What? So I got to tell that story so that I can give him his due, you know what I mean? And that was just kind of a cool moment, meeting the OG from back in the day, and he's a great guy. Kind of ties into the question. So.
After leaving the original series and coming back, was everything back on set again?
Well, you guys know I'm coming back next season, right? For Beast Morpher season 2. Yeah, I would like for them to have given me a little more notice. I was not shredded by the time I made it back to the series, but I only had 30 days. And I cut a lot of weight, but I started a little bit of a Buddha. I was like, oh, no. The fans are going to give me hell over this one. But, c'est la vie. So anyway, coming back, I got to meet the new cast, and I never filmed in New Zealand. And they had asked me every year to come back for, Super Mega Smackdown or whatever that was, and, all of these other huge reunion episodes. And for several of them, I was overseas for the war. I couldn't come back. After that, I was just, and before that, I was like, and what's the pay? You're gonna, and especially when I was overseas, because I had security clearances, I was under contract, and I was supporting a family. And I was like, wait, let me get this straight. You want me to violate my contract? You want me to end my job? I'll end up losing my security clearance because I leave country or leave theater. And then I will never get rehired because I broke my contract. And it's a 6-figure contract. To come over here and make $1,200? Come on. I mean, you don't have to be Captain Obvious to figure that one out, right? Like, could you imagine? I call my wife, hey, I want you to know, babe, I know we've been making good money. We have this house, and we're not rich, but we're doing well. I want you to know, I'm going to throw all that away to go film for 2 weeks in New Zealand for $1,200.
Follow your dreams, baby.
Right. How many of you girls would vote for that one for your boy? Yeah. So, needless to say, that didn't happen. And for 18 years, I was like, are you guys stoned? What's the matter with you? Meanwhile, there's 1 or 2 other Rangers that come back every season because they love the fans. That's a load of crap. What they love is the attention. And so that's cool. Do your thing. And what got me back this year, after 18 years of telling them no, was normally they would have, their casting agents send my people an email. My people would, always forward it to me because it kind of became a joke. Let's see how horrible this deal is. And because they still pay horrible. And this is common knowledge in the world of Power Rangers. And so I looked at it and I was like, no, not a chance. Well, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the executive producer. And it turns out that the executive producer was a guy who started and was working on the show with me 25 years ago. So I knew him personally. He calls me up and he goes, look. He goes, I know you're always saying no. He says, and I'm getting ready to leave. Like, I'm done. This is my last hoorah. And now he's phasing out. And I filmed with him this April. He says, but here's the deal. I would love to bring you in. There's 1 or 2 other guys on set from 25 years ago. One was DP, Sean. Another one was a stunt guy who was there filming forever and a day ago with Alpha Stunts. He says, there's a few here that you would like. He goes, and have you ever been to New Zealand? I said, no. He goes, you should come hang out, man. And he is the only reason. And I didn't have anything else going on that actually paid at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to lose money to go. All right, I'll go. And it was under Hasbro. It wasn't Saban anymore. And I was like, well, let's see what Hasbro was like. So I went, and I had a great time. I met a new cast. New Zealand was gorgeous. I got to go to Puha Beach, which was like this black sand beach. I had a great time. It was beautiful. And, I met these young pups who, they were like, oh my God, we grew up watching you. I was like, shut up. I was just starting to like you. I don't like you anymore, all right? Don't ruin things. We're just getting going here. So anyway, I met these guys, and they were all great. They were great casts. And I'm looking forward I think it'll be coming out early next year, so you guys can see it. I just can't tell you what I did. So, but there it is. Yes, sir?
Do you have any favorites behind the scenes, both in soul and sanity?
They still are.
Yeah.
If you ever, how many of you have ever been to Power Morphic? You need to go. Any con that has Paul Schreier or Jason Narvi, Falcon Skull, you need to go see them. You will have a great time. If you have little ones, be careful. Little ears, I mean. But they are everything you expect and more. So, moments. Man, so many. I mean, I remember watching them talk about and setting up like their gags, you know, this pie in the face, this fall, and they would set it up, and this is comedy. So, and I was a new actor, and I remember watching them plan these comic beats the same way I would sit down with 8 martial artists and choreograph a fight. And they could do it just as quick as, they were so practiced, they could do it just as quick as 8 of us could put together a massive fight. It was just second nature and required very little thought. And they were exceptional at it. So, I mean, I remember we had one episode with a food fight. And everything was covered in plastic on set. The camera, everybody behind, they had, there was a little hole for the camera lens to poke through, and there was a little hole for the director to stand next to the camera to look through so he could actually see what was going on without plastic. And Paul and Narvi and all the rest of us were in there. And, you know, I'm 19, and you're loading me up with whipped cream pies, and you're telling me I only got to hit that spot over there? Come on. You had to know this wasn't going to go well. And that was before we got to Narvi and Paul. And so the food fight is going on, and food's flying, and everything is covered except for the director and the cameraman and the camera. And so I remember, and I wasn't the first one to think of it, and we never said anything to each other. But at different points in the same scene, the next time we shot, we all kind of, hey, there's the guy I'm supposed to hit. Oh, I slipped. And drilled the director and the cameraman. And it was great because we all drilled him, and I remember everybody was like, oh, the director's wiping stuff off his face, and all this is going on, and the cameraman is like, I cannot see anything through my camera. Everything is covered. What is this, whipped cream? This is whipped cream on my camera, you know? And we're falling apart laughing, having a great time. Rice and andouille sausage are flying everywhere, and we're having a good time. And it was just kind of one of those at the end where I remember looking over at him, we just kind of nodded like, good job, we were there. So that was one moment. We got to cream the director, it was great. Anybody else?
We've been up to outside Power Rangers nowadays.
A lot. So I left the show. I taught martial arts around the world. I remember bouncing at night and teaching martial arts during the day at a studio in Arizona, which is where I first started learning Jitsu, or Machado style Jitsu. Did some of the Vale Tudo competitions, and then I traveled all over. Joined the fire department, became a paramedic, 12 years in the DC area. We had a massive call volume, super busy area. Did it in Loudoun County, did it at Fort Belvoir, which is a big base off the 95 interchange, and worked at a magnet status level 1 hospital as a medic down there in the ER and the trauma bays. And then I did 4 years as a medic overseas, touched Marine Corps, Army, and military operations. Came home in 2014, spring, and heard about all this, and kind of came back to the industry. And since then, I have acted and or produced or associate produced in or around or with 3 or 4 different films. I did an Amazon Prime series. I just released a romantic comedy that is now on Amazon called A Walk with Grace. And I did an Amazon Prime TV series called Fireball Run. Just looked for the one dated 2019. The season, I think, was called Big Country. Fast cars, cool stunts, lots of cool stuff if you're just into that history, education. We help find missing children. There's a lot of really cool elements to Fireball Run. Or you just go to fireballrun.com and check out the most recent season, you'll see it. And then I did a Lionsgate film called Monsters at Large. That's out on DVD, you can track that one down. I'm releasing a global video game at the end of this year called Black Salt Corruption. And it was created by Owen Ratliff, who he used to have, I think it was the biggest rap label in the Midwest. And I met him, he started this journey long before I got involved, like 14, 15 years ago. And I met him about 3 years ago, and he told me, he says, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have a black